Welcome, and thanks for joining us again. I'm Rich Brady, CEO at the American Society of Military Comptrollers, and your host on The Business of Defense, sponsored by ASMC on Federal News Network. ASMC is a nonprofit professional association committed to promoting education, training, and certification of the defense financial management workforce, driving financial transformation in the defense sector, and upholding the highest professional and ethical standards. My guest today is Ryan Wagspack, President and founder of Iberia Advisory. Iberia Advisory is a service-disabled, veteran-owned small business that provides change management, data analytics, financial management, and audit support to federal clients. A relatively new firm in the federal financial management sector, having started during the COVID pandemic, Iberia's goal is to help their customers elevate their organization into one that is greater than the sum of the parts, one that uses all available resources efficiently and manages its programs effectively. I'm excited to have Ryan on the show today as we talk about the experiences, opportunities, and challenges of an early stage startup in the GovCon space. Ryan, welcome to the show.
Thanks, Rich. Really appreciate the opportunity to be here.
Absolutely. Yeah. So usually when we start on the show here, we like to talk about the origins of a company. And a lot of times we go back 10, 20, 30 years. Not quite the case with Iberia Advisory. So can you tell us a little bit about the origins of Iberia and how it got started?
Absolutely. So the origins of Iberia and really my decision to found Iberia can be traced back to the influence that my late father had on me. Growing up, he always pushed me to think and act with an entrepreneurial mindset. In fact, the name of the company is a small tribute to him. He was born in New Iberia, Louisiana, which is where the name Iberia Advisory comes from. Now, growing up in Louisiana, I didn't grow up in a military family, and so I didn't have any exposure to this federal consulting industry. And I wasn't introduced to this industry until after I left active duty and started with a Big Four accounting firm. And it was there where I had a chance to work side by side with customers, help them, provide recommendations to help them solve some of their financial management challenges. It also gave me the chance to combine my experience in the military with my passion for business. So bottom line is I loved it. And I realized that this was an industry that I wanted to make a career out of, that I wanted to start a firm in one day. And so when I left the Big Four accounting firm, I supported and worked for two small businesses. The second of which was probably the most valuable experience. I started as employee number 8 and rose to be the vice president. But it also taught me the dedication and the determination that's required to be successful in this industry. And more importantly and more relevant to today's discussion, in 2017, I led this company's efforts to secure their first prime contract within the Department of the Navy. And fast forward 5 years when this contract came up for recompete, this was one of the 2 prime contracts that Iberia was able to launch with in January 2022. So sitting here with you today, 15 months later, we've had a chance to, and been very fortunate to be able to grow our footprint, not only within the Department of the Navy, but also as a subcontractor on a DSE engagement. And we've also spent a considerable amount of time focused on our back office, ensuring that we've got a scalable back office infrastructure to enable and to support our company's future growth. And so Rich, at the end of the day, I couldn't be prouder of what our team's been able to accomplish in such a short period of time. But like I remind them every day, just like anything in life, it's not where you start, it's where you finish. And while we have enjoyed some early success, we have to remain humble and we have to remain hungry, because for us, for Iberia, the journey's just beginning.
So, a lot of times they say starting a business in this space takes a bit of a leap of faith, right? But starting a business during the COVID pandemic is something in a whole different realm. Can you talk a little bit about that, maybe some of the challenges of starting up at that time and what you learned from that?
Right, I don't like to make things easy for myself. I think for me, COVID, and I think like many others, COVID was a time for me to reflect on what was truly important to me. I mentioned in the beginning, starting a firm was always something that was a dream of mine. My father had always encouraged me to think this way and think with an entrepreneurial mindset. And so for me, I knew what I wanted, and there's never going to be a perfect time, but when this contract that I helped shape and bring to the previous company came up for recompete, it was about as good a time as any. And sure, we had concerns, and there were certainly risks. But in my mind, I always play back some of the great advice that I received from a mentor when I was in the military. And he would always tell me, Ryan, one can't predict, one can only prepare. And so all we could do was make sure that we were prepared to go to market, we were prepared to launch, and so far we've been successful.
Does that kind of define how you approach risks? I mean, because obviously, what starting a company takes on a lot of risks. Starting during the COVID pandemic takes you're taking on a lot of risk. Does that experience in the military help drive your thinking about risk and your preparation for addressing potential contingencies?
It absolutely does, because like I mentioned, going back to that advice that I received, really all you can do is strengthen your processes, strengthen your organization internally. That's the best way to prepare for things that are on the horizon, and things like COVID that no one can predict.
Right.
And so, we focus on what we can control and strengthen our processes today. We oftentimes will have after-action reports. I know that was a term in the military, or leverage lessons learned, to figure out where do we fall short and how can we do better. And we're constantly doing that. And so I think for us, that's helped us mitigate risk thus far.
Can you talk a little bit about how you've grown over the past few years? Number of employees, revenues. What type of growth are you currently seeing?
Sure. So we went from 0 to 20, right at 20, and by the end of this year we might be 25 or 30 if some opportunities come through. Our first year, from a revenue perspective, $3 million, and we're probably looking around $3.5, $4 million this year. So. Again, couldn't be prouder, but like I said in the beginning, we have to remain humble and we have to remain hungry, because you can't take anything for granted in this industry.
Now, as far as backing, any PE backing, VC backing, or is this all on Ryan?
No, all on Ryan, all on Ryan, especially from the beginning. It's a shame that we got out in front of things and we applied for small business loans, but at the time when we did launch and the contracts came through, we didn't have that funding. So it truly was me tapping into savings, me tapping into lines of credit with the bank. So yeah.
Really bootstrapping the organization.
Absolutely. But look, if you believe in something that you want to do, I say do it. And we're always going to make big bets on ourselves. I mean, we are confident in the capabilities that we provide and what we bring to the market.
Now, as we mentioned in the opening, you're a service-disabled, veteran-owned small business. And I think you might be the first service-disabled, veteran-owned small business that we've had on the show. Can you talk a little bit about what that means and what some of the advantages come with that?
Sure. So, service-disabled, veteran-owned small business. It's similar to women-owned small businesses, where when you go to compete for contracts, it's a socioeconomic set-aside category, so the competition is often limited. And myself, as a veteran, I have a service-connected injury and disability, so that allows me to, and the company to, qualify for that socioeconomic category. Now, how it's helped us grow, we look at growth from a 10-year perspective, and so we're not as concerned certainly we're going to leverage this set-aside category now, but we're looking long-term, 10 years out. And for us, we want to be positioned in a way that we can play in that mid-tier market space, which we know is an ambitious goal, but we feel if we focus on the right things for us, it's achievable. And for us, that's one, being smart, being strategic about the IDIQs, or the large contract vehicles that we look to pursue. We want those that will allow us to leverage our core capabilities. And we've already begun taking action on that by, we formed a joint venture to target specifically 2 IDIQs and large contract vehicles coming up. The second area that we have to remain focused on is building that proposal engine and having that capability in-house. So when we are awarded these contract vehicles, we can respond to the requirements quickly. And again, we've already taken action on this by investing heavily in training our folks to have that in-house capability. And then lastly, just remaining focused on what we do best. And that's delivering top talent to every engagement that we support, and putting our customers first.
So talk to us a little bit about what strategy development looks like for a small business, for a startup? They say there's kind of three schools of thought to strategy development. One is just kind of the emergent, companies muddle along, and as opportunities present themselves, they seize them. And it's not necessarily a bad method. Many businesses, maybe many small businesses do that. If you think about the small corner store or gas station or something, that's just how they operate. Another school of thought is more of kind of the ends, ways, means thought, the goal-oriented. A lot of us in the military, who served in the military, are familiar with that, where you try to predict the future, you identify the goal out there, and you identify the ways and means of achieving it. And another one is kind of methodology, is more of a process methodology to strategy, where you're continually observing the environment, looking a couple years out, and adjusting as the environment changes. Where would you say you fall within kind of those schools of thought, or how are you approaching strategy development?
Probably the latter, and the process-driven approach. What we do is we leverage our core capabilities. I should start by saying Iberia was founded with the mission of helping federal agencies tackle their most complex financial management challenges. And so for us, we bring to the table a full range of financial management service offerings, and really can bucketize those into 5 categories. It's audit response and remediation, it's internal controls and enterprise risk management, it's budget planning and execution, it's data analytics and visualization, it's change management and strategic communications. Now, the last 2 certainly are standalone capabilities, but those also support really any work that we do. Now, I mention all those because those are capabilities, skill sets that are applicable across the federal space. So from a process perspective, we think we can leverage those to continue to build our footprint.
So one last question before we finish this first segment here. You get an opportunity to visit a potential client. What's your 30-second pitch?
In these discussions, I really hit on 2 points. The first being that Iberia can support and transform large-scale programs with small, agile teams in dynamic customer environments. Now, we've demonstrated that we can do this within our support with the Department of the Navy. A great proof point is it was our team members' support for the Don's improper payments program, where we took it from a material weakness to where it is today, which is a good news story. The second area that I always hit on with these discussions is Iberia's corporate capabilities and our corporate maturity far exceeds our years in business. So I love talking to customers about the network of recruiters that we set up, and our ability to bring top-tier talent to engagements, our ability to surge up when required. And also we love talking about our focus on quality from day one. And again, we've demonstrated this by earning our ISO 9001 2015 certification in the first year. Now, this pitch, 30-second speech, will certainly evolve over time, but we certainly want to hit on that last piece around our corporate maturity, far exceeding our years in business, because we want to get ahead of or out in front of any risk that potential customers may have working with a small business that's really only been in business for a year.
Ryan, you previously mentioned that you served in the military. You were originally from Louisiana, and I don't think you were originally in the financial management space. No. Can you talk a little bit about your background, a little bit more? What did you do in the Navy?
I was a surface warfare officer. Okay. So I spent 7 years active and then did a couple of years in the reserves.
All right. And then you transitioned out, came here to the D.C. area. You were here in the D.C. area, and you mentioned you went to work for a Big Four firm.
I did. That was my first job, and like I said, early into that first job with the Big Four accounting firm, I realized I loved this industry. And it was a perfect mix of being able to leverage my knowledge, experience from being in the military, but also my passion for business. So it just made sense to me.
Do you think that gives you, having that military background, a little bit of better understanding or some greater insight into your customers' needs when you go and talk to the Navy? Obviously there's the parts of it where you understand some of the lingo, the acronyms and things like that, but is there something deeper than that?
Certainly. It certainly helps to be able to speak intelligently about the operational environment that you're in, always tying it back to the sailors and the folks that are out in the field. That certainly helps. But I think what I took from the military, which has been invaluable, which I'm sure you did as well, is the leadership traits. And for me, this has been something that I think has really helped us grow. And I think it's making sure that one, you lead by example, right? And for us, no one on our leadership team, myself included, will ever ask a team member to do something that we're not willing to do. It's about being open and transparent about our performance, both good and bad. We have weekly team meetings where we will talk about successes from the week, but also where we fell short and how we can learn from that. And then the third aspect that I picked up from the military was leaders always continue to learn, and leaders don't always have to be the smartest person in every room. So that's why I love surrounding myself with mentors. I think my strongest leadership trait, I think, is that I'm coachable, and I love surrounding myself with smart, ambitious people that allow me to think differently and to push myself.
Now, as you came into the industry, you clearly continued to learn. You really immersed yourself in finance and accounting, a couple certifications, including ASMC's own Certified Defense Financial Manager certification. How important was that, in learning the business, in gaining credibility in the business?
Without a doubt. I mean, at the highest level, the low-hanging fruit from a labor category perspective, when you're staffing engagements, oftentimes those are requirements, right. and so that helps. But just from a knowledge base, and if you truly have a passion for financial management, certifications like CDFM, there really aren't any better certifications to go and pursue. And so that allowed me to go down a track of pursuing others like CGFM or eventually earning my CPA.
Fantastic. And then you mentioned earlier, you talked a little bit about mentors and one of the quotes one of your mentors gave you.
Yes.
What other mentors have guided you, and how does that help define the culture that you're trying to develop within Iberia?
Yeah, it's interesting. I have had mentors dating back to the military where it was picking their brain on the next orders to take or whether it was the right time to transition from active duty. And that's carried forward into this industry. What's interesting, what's different is that the mentors that I have today are peer mentors. Right? It's other folks that we work together with, and those are the ones that I leaned heavily on when I was looking to start Iberia and getting lessons learned from them. And for Iberia specifically, it's already paid dividends. One of my peer mentors we brought on as a senior advisor, and he's helping us think through our governance structure. Are we holding leadership accountable? Do we have the right diversity, equity, and inclusion initiatives to attract and retain the right talent moving forward? So again, I can't say enough about mentors and mentorship. Like I said, I think one of my biggest strengths is that I'm coachable, and that's why I love having mentors. Yeah,
let's talk a little bit, if we can, about the kind of macroeconomic environment, what's going on in this space. Obviously, there's a lot of questions about recession. There's still a lot of inflationary pressures, supply chain pressures, talent management pressures. As a startup, how are you navigating some of that? Is it more difficult? Do you find that maybe as a startup you're able to be more agile? What are your thoughts around that?
We certainly are, and I think I always replay the advice that I get or got from my mentors that one cannot predict, one can only prepare. But we are laser focused on what we do best, and also from a landscape perspective, I think this is a positive time to be a small business. Certainly within the Department of Defense. I mean, you see with the Secretary of Defense's small business strategy that was released in January 2023, they're thinking about some of these obstacles and barriers that small businesses face today, and they're trying to get out in front of it and remove those barriers. So, going back to us just focusing on what we do best, and I think our competitive advantage has been our culture, and really building our culture around three pillars, and that's excellence in customer delivery, that's continuous development of our future leaders, and that's maintaining a day one mentality. And I'll kind of start at the top and explain what I mean by each. Excellence in customer delivery, we put our customers first in everything that we do. We measure our success based on their success. Our goal is to implement long-term sustainable solutions that will last long beyond when we leave an organization. Success to us is leaving an organization in a better position than we started working with them. The continuous development of our future leaders. At Iberia, we recognize people are our greatest assets. So we try to instill leadership at all levels. And we do that through recruiting. We look for individuals that share our passion for financial management, that have a bias for action, that have a bias for accountability, and that appreciate our delivery model, which is a best athlete approach, meaning we don't care if you've been with us for a few months or a few days. If you've got the right solution or an innovative idea for the customer, we're putting you in front of them. And lastly, with the maintaining a day one mentality, Rich, if I've learned anything over this past year, it's a competitive environment. you can't take anything for granted, and nothing is going to be given to you. So we have to earn it every day with our current customers. We have to earn it every day with customers that we want to pursue, and we have to earn it through our relationships with our teaming partners.
And what opportunities do you see out there? What potential new customers, new areas? You mentioned the kind of 5 areas you're working in right now. What areas are you looking to expand in over the next few years?
From an organizational standpoint, certainly the VA. We also like opportunities within DHS. DHA is another organization that we've begun targeting. So again, I think going back to our core capabilities, we can leverage those because they're applicable across the federal space. And so, we are certainly positive about what the future looks like and our ability to grow.
Now, as you continue to grow, at some point in time, you've talked about having peer mentors helping you out. Have you given any thought about, a board of advisors or even a board of directors? At what point do you reach the stage where you need to bring in some senior leadership to assist, to advise you?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I may have kind of alluded to it earlier that one of my peer mentors is someone that we brought on as our first senior advisor. And to some folks, it might sound funny that a company, that's 15 months old is bringing on a board of advisors. But to us, we think it's critical because we don't have a view of where we're going to be next year. We have a view where we want to be in 10 years. And as I had mentioned before, that's positioning ourselves to compete in that mid-market, mid-tier space. And in order to do that, you have to think differently. You have to think, larger than where you are today.
Yeah. So, what for that senior advisor you've brought in? What type of skills, abilities do they bring to the table that help assist you in scaling your business?
Well, he's been a member of several boards in the past, and so that governance structure. Again, how do you hold myself? How do you hold the rest of the leadership team accountable? That's been critical. Now, we're spoiled a bit in that before joining us as senior advisor, he also supported the Secretary of Defense as a senior advisor on diversity, equity, and inclusion initiatives. So, of course, he has some really smart, creative, innovative ideas for us to think about, to implement today and to implement in the future in order to, like I said, attract and retain the right talent moving forward.
So let's say 5 years from now, we're sitting here again, we're sitting down to talk about Iberia Advisory. Where are you 5 years from right now?
I think we're going very strongly down that path of being able to compete in 5 more years in that mid-tier space. So I think, again, fingers crossed, I think we're going down the right path right now.
Fantastic. Well, thank you very much. I'd like to thank today's guest, Ryan Wagspack, President and founder of Iberia Advisory, for his insights into Iberia's business origin, strategy, competition, and startup culture, which are helping them carve a niche in the financial and digital transformation space for their federal clients. Watch the Business of Defense again next month, where we bring you inside the companies working to drive transformation in the defense sector, to hear directly from their business leaders and understand how they create value for their companies and their customers. And join us in St. Louis from May 31st to June 2nd, where over 3,000 defense financial management professionals will come together for ASMC's annual Professional Development Institute and to celebrate our 75th anniversary in serving the profession. I am Rich Brady, CEO of the American Society of Military Comptrollers, and I thank you again for joining us. You are listening to Federal News Network. For more on this discussion, visit federalnewsnetwork.com and search ASMC.